Primetime Fantasy Football is brought to you by Next Level Radio. Head over to nextlevelradioonline.com for past episodes of Primetime Fantasy Football and the Showcast, plus celebrity guest spotlights. Now, on to this week's Primetime Fantasy Football.
People I never thought about associating with. I don't know what it is. Talk to me. Check it out. Hey, front of acres with a mansion on my land. Full jacuzzis and my neighbors can't stand the way I live. This oh so fast. Ain't got your ladies and prime time is all that.
Whoa, Dion. It's not that kind of prime time.
Yeah, man, it's Primetime Fantasy Football on Next Level Radio.
Well, alright.
Welcome in to another Primetime Fantasy Football here on Next Level Radio. I am your host, Adam Gorey, and I'm always joined by Steve Richards, except this time it's a special occasion. Steve is in studio with me, and I'm sure he's going to sound a lot better today than he usually does.
Yeah, maybe not smarter, but better at least.
Yeah, it's good quality, good audio quality right there.
Yeah.
We got a lot to go over today. We're going to recap the Bills-Giants game for you real quick, the Hall of Fame game that really you only need to pay attention for the first quarter. We have a listener question. You can send us your questions, either email primetime@nextlevelradioonline.com, or you can tweet us at NXTLevelRadio, which is how we got this question. And then just hashtag PTFF for Primetime Fantasy Football. Still some room in our fantasy football league. I think we have about 8 teams, maybe 9. If you want to get in on that, just send your information to primetime@nextlevelradioonline.com. And the first 12 teams automatically get in. Like I said, it's a max of 16. So anybody after 12, I'm going to put your names in a hat and pick 4 random people, and those are the 4 people that get in. And then the week before our draft, which our draft is Tuesday, August 2nd.
September 2nd.
That's correct, September 2nd. We're already past August 2nd. So Wednesday the 27th, that podcast, we're going to live on the air pick the draft order, just so and if we pick either of our names out of the hat first, we'll put them back in and pick somebody else, so it's fair. So anyway, I think that's it. Today we're going to go over the AFC North, the final AFC division. So we'll give you the sleeper spotlights, the over-under. We're also going to, like I said, recap that Bills-Giants preseason game, answer a listener question, go over some news and injuries. And then we're going to give you our quarterback rankings. So we're going to break that down for you a little bit later. So let's kick things off. I guess we will start out talking about this Bills-Giants game. Not like it matters, but the final score was 17-13 Giants. They are now 1-0 in the preseason. Don't get used to it. I don't know. Both teams look like they kind of struggled a little bit offensively in the beginning, at least. I know you probably didn't get a chance to watch too much of it. Andre Williams did play pretty well, even though a lot of it was against the Bills' second-team offense, or rather defense. But he is definitely someone to keep an eye on. Apparently, according to ESPN's Dan Graziano, the Giants reporter, he believes that that usage of Andre Williams indicates that he may be a big part of the initial plan. He's definitely someone to keep an eye on. David Wilson now unfortunately being finished from football completely. You would think that might clear up the Giants' running back situation, but after seeing Andre Williams, I think it makes it even more hazy.
Yeah, I would agree with that. They seem to like Andre Williams. You pretty much said it, that they gave him plenty of work, whether it was a preseason game or not, whether it was against a second-string defense or not. He ran hard and he looked good, so they'll probably be giving him more work. And there's definitely a spot there to fill, and he's looking to fill it. So
yeah, him and Rashad Jennings had the same amount of carries. They each had 7. Andre Williams had 48 yards. Jennings had 23. So a little bit of a difference. And Williams had that touchdown as well. Also, on the flip side, E.J. Manuel didn't look great. 2 for 7 for 19 yards. I know I have him listed in my auction article. It was a cheap value. He's $1. So he's played like he's $1 this past week. I'm not overly concerned about it. He's not going to be my starting quarterback, but I'd still take a flyer on him. It's going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah, in his opposite number, Eli ended up getting sacked once for a loss of 21 yards and lost a fumble on the first possession. So
Eli being Eli.
Yeah, he turned it over as usual. So
I had said this earlier, and Joe Flacco is on that ship as well. I think him and Eli Manning are slightly undraftable. They would be like my QB3 if in a two. The only way I'd draft them if it's a 2-quarterback league.
Yeah, then you're pretty much drafting everybody in the league. So
yeah. So on the sticking with the Bills at least, the other story over there is that Mike Williams started over Robert Woods, which was kind of surprising. A lot of people projected Robert Woods to be the other starter opposite Sammy Watkins, who, by the way, didn't have a catch in the game. What do you think? Do you think Mike Williams is going to keep that second job? I know we both had liked Robert Woods, considering this was his second year with the Bills and second year with E.J. Manuel. Mike Williams being, a newcomer to the team. Do you think Mike Williams is going to stick to that? Would you draft either one of them?
I don't think that I would draft either one of them. I might have thought about drafting Robert Woods. I just thought Robert Woods had more potential than Mike Williams does. But if they're going to play Mike Williams ahead of Robert Woods, then that obviously kills that off. I'm looking at his numbers. I didn't know that he actually scored 11 touchdowns in 2010, but it was 2010. So his best days might be behind him. So
yeah, it is 4 years
I think
ago.
I might have to stick with Sammy Watkins and hope that E.J. Manuel, like you said, plays better than 2 for 7. And he obviously only played a couple series, but
yeah, they might
Sammy
end up
Watkins
being
might be the only guy there.
Yeah, they might end up being like a running off, rushing offense. Relying on that Bryce Brown, Fred Jackson, C.J. Spiller. I mean, they had a total of 21 rushes and 40 passes. The Giants is kind of interesting because a lot of pre-season or I guess training camp talk about the Giants becoming a pass-happy team.
Yeah.
They passed it 22 times, rushed it 38 times in the game. I think they're still going to be the same old Giants. They have a new offense coordinator, yes, but same head coach, and he likes to run the ball.
Yeah, I mean, it's whether they were talking about passing it a lot more, that doesn't mean they're going to throw it down the field. From what I understand, they're going with a lot of runs and short passes. So Eli was 6 for 7. That's what they were talking about with the high completion percentage and things like that. But he also had 6 completions for 43 yards. So, it's short passes and a lot of runs, which isn't going to help Eli Manning at all.
7 yards a pass, yeah. Not that great. I don't think what's the name? Victor Cruz. I don't think he played, did he, in this game? He didn't have a catch, I know that.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it. I don't remember hearing about him at all either. Obviously, he didn't have a catch.
Yeah, I don't think he played at all. I don't see any news here as far as that. But anyway, let's move on because, like I said, it's the first preseason game. Now, this week, everybody plays a preseason game, so we'll have a ton to talk about next week as far as overreaction goes with these preseason games because it's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
You really don't need to start overreacting until, I would say, the third preseason game. That's when they play the most.
Yeah, I think that's the game where most of the starters play 3 quarters, and that's where you kind of get an idea of what your team's going to look like.
Yeah, exactly.
I know the Browns said they were going to name a starter after the third game, which all that means is we have to listen to 3 more weeks of incessant talking about Johnny Manziel. So
yeah, and we'll get to that when we do our AFC North focus.
Yeah.
So let's move on to some of the news going on this week. Benny Cunningham apparently is firmly ahead of Trey Mason for the backup role, which is interesting because a lot of people had thought Trey Mason may even give Zach Stacy a run for his money. And this just kind of firms up what we thought, which is that Zach Stacy is going to be the guy in St. Louis this year.
Yeah, for sure. I think I even saw something saying that Trey Mason was running with the 4th string, which obviously that's not something to really read into or believe, but definitely doesn't mean that he's going to be challenging Zach Stacy anytime soon.
No, and Zach Stacy going 12th running back right now, just ahead of Alfred Morris and Doug Martin. That's about where I would suspect him to go. At least that's in Yahoo leagues. Every site's ADP is a little bit different.
Right.
He's going 10th running back wise in ESPN drafts. So Le'Veon Bell is going ahead of him in Yahoo drafts. DeMarco Murray, Gio Bernard. Arian Foster going ahead of him. Arian Foster is a guy that, we'll talk about a little bit when we do the injuries, but he's a guy that I might actually take Zach Stacy over Arian Foster, and I would definitely take Zach Stacy over Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that for sure. I'd take him over DeMarco Murray, too, actually. DeMarco Murray's a bit in the same spot as Arian Foster, where he is injury prone.
Yeah.
I just don't, you got to be able to trust a running back, or at least as best as you can, without something unforeseen. And DeMarco Murray and Arian Foster kind of fall in the same category.
Yeah, so up next we got James White, the new rookie running back to the Patriots. Apparently impressing at camp this year. There's even talk about maybe him threatening some of Stephen Ridley's early down carries. Any flyer maybe that you would take on James White? I mean, it's a heavy loaded backfield in Patriot land.
Yeah, for me, what this does is hurts Stephen Ridley's value more than helps James White's value as far as drafting goes. I mean, as the season progresses, I would definitely look into and keep an eye on it and maybe pick him off the waiver wire, but I think this just lowers Ridley's value more than it does raises James White value for me.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. All right, let's move on to Kelvin Benjamin. Finally, some on-field talk about Kelvin Benjamin coming back from his knee injury. Apparently, he's also impressing at camp. Apparently, he has yet to drop a single pass at training camp. I really like Kelvin Benjamin this year, considering he's one of Cam Newton's only targets, and he's 6'5", 240. If he can stay on the field, I like him to be probably, with the huge class of rookie receivers and a lot of hype going around the rookie receivers, I like him to be probably one of the top 3 rookie receivers, if not the top performing rookie receiver.
Yeah, and Carolina is searching for a wide receiver with Steve Smith gone, and they brought in 2 guys that are unfamiliar to Cam Newton. So Kelvin Benjamin's just the 3rd guy that's unfamiliar to Cam Newton. So they're definitely, not only is Carolina looking for somebody to shore up a wide receiver spot, but Cam Newton is looking for a safety blanket essentially. And they're throwing Kelvin Benjamin right into the starter role. So if he can take it and run with it, then he can have it.
Yeah, and apparently, according to ESPN Panthers reporter David Newton, it's obvious Kelvin Benjamin is Cam Newton's top wide receiver target right now. So that's a good sign. His ADP, I know, is really late. I think it's like 11th or 12th round or something like that. I think in the realm of rookie receivers, a guy like Sammy Watkins is getting overvalued, and a guy like Kelvin Benjamin is getting undervalued. Yeah,
I would definitely consider in the 11th round, Kelvin Benjamin would be good value if that's where you can get Kelvin Benjamin, whether you're in a 10-team league or a 12-team league, really. 11th round is good value for somebody like that, and it's always good to find somebody that's a starting wide receiver if you can find him that late, really.
Yeah, and I can't even actually, he's, according to Yahoo at least, going undrafted. Checking ESPN real quick. He's going 141st, right around there overall. So that's about the 15th round.
Yeah.
So guys like Josh Gordon are still somehow going before him. James Jones, Justin Hunter, Tavon Austin, Mike Evans, Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks, I'm not overly happy about Brandon Cooks. And we'll talk about him, I guess, more next week when we get into the NFC South. But yeah, Brandon Cooks is one of the rookie receivers, like Mike Evans even. I would probably take Kelvin Benjamin before Mike Evans just because Cam Newton is passing it to Kelvin Benjamin.
Yeah, I like Mike Evans a lot as far as his skills go, but I think it might take him a little while to get used to it and to really get into a rhythm.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting when we do our wide receiver rankings because there are so many rookie wide receivers that are going to be possibly starting this year in the NFL. So we could even do a separate ranking just for rookie wide receivers. I almost said Wookiee.
Or Wookiee wide receivers.
Chewbacca. So let's move on. We got Ronnie Hillman getting most of the first team carries with Monte Ball out. And speaking of Monte Ball, he had I'm not medically sound. What's the proper pronunciation? Appendectomy?
Appendectomy.
Yeah, okay. So appendectomy. He had an appendectomy. He's apparently possibly going to return at some point in the preseason. But apparently this doesn't really keep people out that long, so he should be okay to go. We'll tell you if we give him a red, a green, or a yellow in a second. But anyway, back to
Hillman.
Yeah, back to Ronnie Hillman. Getting most of the first team carries. I know we had talked about it a little bit last week. That kind of solidifies that he's ahead of C.J. Anderson at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned it last week that I just like whoever the number 2 for the Denver Broncos as far as a running back goes. That I would really, I would look for him as a really good handcuff, as somebody who even draft and maybe even use during a regular season game, just because you never know what it's going to take for Peyton Manning to say, okay, I'm done with this guy. Where's the next guy? So, and the next guy up is always ready to perform in Denver.
Yeah, the next guy up's Ronnie Hillman. So, he did have some fumble issues last year, but if you have Monte Ball, might not be a bad idea to take Ronnie Hillman in a later round as like a handcuff type of deal, just
Certainly,
in case.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of like even Alfred Morris this year. There's a lot of guys that I would consider, as thin as the running back position is this year, there's a lot of guys that you kind of need to handcuff. Like I said, Alfred Morris, I'd probably handcuff Roy Halou to him just because Roy Halou has impressed before with the Redskins, and I know they like him. The new head coach isn't necessarily attached to any one running back.
Sure, absolutely.
And I know there was talk about them becoming a little more pass-oriented, and Alfred Morris isn't necessarily a reception running back.
Yeah, that's for sure Roy Halou's game, more than Alfred Morris.
Exactly. Moving on, we got Andre Holmes listed as a starter on the Oakland wide receiving core. Him and Rod Streeter. So James Jones kind of cementing himself as off our radar completely because he's not even listed as a starter right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And the way I got this news was from Vic Taffer. Hopefully I got the name right on
it's
Twitter.
It's either Taffer or Taffer.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I got it on Twitter.
He's verified though, so he's got to be important.
Yeah. It says no surprise on the Raiders' first official depth chart. Streeter and Holmes listed as starters, which it's actually a surprise to me. Maybe I should hang out in Oakland on the West Coast a little bit more, but I thought James Jones was a starter.
Yeah, so
for
did
the
I.
Oakland Raiders. So, but the fact that he said no surprise means that, to me at least, Streeter and Holmes are definitely solidified as the starters, and that James Jones is kind of just a slot guy at this point.
Yeah, I'm not drafting a single Oakland person on my fantasy team.
Person? Not at all?
Nobody.
Yeah, I could see that.
I'm staying away from the running back situation, even though I think MJD is listed as the starter at this point, at least. I'm staying away from that. I'm staying away from the receivers, quarterback, tight end, defense, kicker. Maybe the kicker. That might be the only guy.
Yeah, you got
Sebastian.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Janikowski's still there. So
yeah. Jordan Reed, and I had seen this too, but you had added it to the list. Jordan Reed apparently impressing in the scrimmages against the Patriots. And what's interesting about this is it's not a Washington reporter that had said this.
Right, absolutely. It's Ben Volen from the Boston Globe, who, it's kind of something to be said where at least somebody that's not from Washington that looks at Jordan Reed every day and knows that Jordan Reed is supposed to be an impact player is the one saying it. It's kind of an unbiased opinion coming out and saying this. So that kind of boosts the credibility of the article for me anyway.
Yeah, I'm a big Jordan Reed guy. I like him a lot. I had him on a couple teams last year, traded him to you in one league. The only issue or concern, I guess, would be his concussion history.
Right.
But when that guy's on the field, he's a playmaker. We'll get to our tight end rankings in a few weeks, but he could definitely crack easily top 10, and he might even sneak into the top 5 if he plays a full season.
Yeah, I would agree with that. He's definitely a fringe guy, and either way, somebody that can... It's always nice to have a tight end that can actually make an impact for your fantasy team, not some guy that's just going to score 4 points a week as a filler. So
yeah, and
he's definitely one of those guys.
RG3 likes to look to him. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I know that he looks his way a lot. He gets a lot of targets, at least. The way RG3 played last year, maybe not a lot of good targets. But if RG3 can play a little bit better this year, that's even better for Jordan Reed. I think the Redskins are going to be a sneaky... when we talk about teams that are going to do a lot of fantasy production, player-wise, we talk about the Chicago Bears, probably even the Detroit Lions, the Eagles, obviously. I think the Redskins are going to be a sneaky one. They have a lot of potential guys who could put up some points. You got Alfred Morris, you got RG3, obviously, 2 really good wide receivers in Deshaun Jackson and Pierre Garçon. and now you have a solid tight end in Jordan Reed. Maybe the only thing I'm worried or I wouldn't draft is their defense.
Yeah, I would certainly avoid that. It'll be interesting. I've been saying that whether it's real life football or fantasy football, for me at least, whatever my opinions were, this is kind of a show me year for Robert Griffin III. Where people are just kind of putting it off that he needed a year to recover from the ACL. So I'd like him to actually prove something and win. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes. And if he plays well, you're absolutely right, where the Redskins can absolutely be a strong fantasy team.
Yeah. So let's get on to the injuries, and we'll give you red is no good, yellow is a little cautious, and green is good to go. We'll start out with Michael Crabtree, apparently dealing with a sore hamstring. Whatever it is, apparently the team expects, and this is off of Roto World, so I'm just going to read it so I don't get yelled at for copyright infringement or whatever. They expect him to be out no longer than 2 weeks. It'll probably cost him the preseason opener. According to a source, he believes it's a sore hamstring, nothing too serious. They just want to hold him back to be a little cautious. Are you green for good, red for bad, or yellow for a little bit cautious here?
I'm green for good here. I would think that, Crabtree's the number one receiver, and I would believe that they're just trying to be cautious with their number one wide receiver. They're not too deep at wide receiver as it is, so they're probably just holding their guy out to make sure that he's fresh and ready to go for week 1.
Yeah, I think the key word in this is sore hamstring and not pulled or torn or anything like that.
I hear that.
Muscles get sore all the time. I'm no athlete by any means, but playing Thanksgiving Day football, I had a sore hip, so I stopped playing so I didn't actually tear or pull something. It's just precautionary. So give him a couple weeks, and it's probably not going to be sore anymore, and I think he'll be good to go for the season. So he's a green for me as well. Andre Johnson, more hammy issues. That seems to be a big thing lately, the past couple of years of preseason. He is actually sidelined. Apparently he pulled his right hamstring last year making a catch. Apparently he's doing better according to Coach Bill O'Brien. He says that he thinks it's something the two of them talk about every day. Doesn't think there's a need to rush him back, just needs to come back when he feels ready.
Yeah, this is kind of a yellow for me. Like you said, there's a difference between sore and pulled. And Coach O'Brien here, he doesn't really instill any confidence in me when he says that it's something that they talk about every day.
How's your hammy feeling?
Yeah.
It's still not great.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, and he just comes back when he feels ready to be back. That just doesn't instill 100% confidence. So he's obviously a great guy when he's on the field, but I would definitely, to me, yellow means just make sure you monitor it and make sure that you don't overreach on something if it's not really healed by the time your draft comes around. So that's a yellow for me.
Yeah, I'm a little yellow on him too. It's something to keep an eye on through preseason. This could be something that could linger into the regular season, especially pulling a hamstring. I've seen guys, again, not an athlete by any means, but I did some collegiate track, and there were guys who would pull their hammy in the beginning of the season, and you don't really see them do much the rest of the year. So it's something that can easily, if not taken good care of, it can easily lead to lingering issues. And I think this helps DeAndre Hopkins. I'm a big fan of his. I know he had a pretty good rookie season. I think he does even better this year. So definitely a guy that's creeping up on my draft board.
Yeah, I know you're a DeAndre Hopkins fan, so you can get all the credit for that one if he has a big year. So he's kind of not on my radar like he is on yours. So
yeah, let's keep an eye on that. Keeping with the Texans, Arian Foster is sidelined yet again. You think this could be another injury-bitten season for him? I know, recently he revealed that he considered retirement following last year's season-ending back injury, and now he's also sitting out of practice this early in camp.
Yeah, I don't know if that's all hearsay or not, but and it's kind of reporters taking a story, one quote out of context and running with it. But if he actually contemplated retirement, that's obviously a serious deal. But either way, he's a red for me. I'm reading off of RotoWire just like you were reading off of, and the last line of his fantasy forecast or whatever they call it, it says he's a dicey fantasy pick, and I think that's being optimistic. I'm going to try to avoid Arian Foster at all costs, and I think we mentioned that he's going ahead of Who was it? It was...
Yeah, he's going top 10 running back wise. I mean, he's going ahead of Le'Veon Bell, DeMarco Murray, Gio Bernard, who, again, we'll get into a little bit later, but I'm big on Gio Bernard this year. Zach Stacy, Alfred Morris, Doug Martin, Andre Ellington, a bunch of guys.
Yeah, it was Zach Stacy that we were talking about, and I would definitely take Zach Stacy and most of the guys that you just mentioned ahead of Arian Foster. He just, like I said, I'd like to be able to rely on my running backs, especially in a year when running back is already thin for fantasy. So I'd like to be able to rely on the guys that I pick, and Arian Foster wouldn't be one of those people for me.
Yeah, he's the 7th. He's going 7th as far as running backs on ESPN. And
second round.
Yeah, I would keep him out of the top 10 running back wise, just out of sheer caution. I don't know if it's a yellow or a red for me. It's very close to a red if it's not a red, because he's a guy that I'm not taking in the first round. I mean, if other people pass on him and he's there in the second and maybe third round, sure, but I'm not taking him in the first round. If I'm taking a Houston running back, it's Andre Brown.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and I mean, Andre Brown is a must, especially if you end up with Arian Foster. He's an absolute must for you behind Arian Foster, but I would also take, like you said, Andre Brown. He's either trade bait for whoever did take Arian Foster, or he ends up as a starter eventually, just because I don't see Arian Foster playing 16 games this year.
Oh, hell no. I don't see him playing. I don't think he's going to play any of the preseason.
Yeah.
At least it's not looking like it. And Andre Brown, by the way, right now, going in about the 14th or 15th round. So a guy that I'll sit there patiently, and I'll take him a couple rounds earlier than that to make sure I get him. And I'll reap the benefits when Arian Foster sits out half the season.
Yeah, that's called a value pick.
That it is. Good fantasy words there. Last one, we got Monte Ball. We had touched on a little bit earlier, appendectomy. We have since figured out the medical terminology. Like I said, he's supposed to return possibly even at some point during the preseason and should be good to go for the regular season. He's a green for me. I'm big on Monte Ball this year as well. I think, as long as he apparently, from everything we're hearing, is that he solved his pass protection issues, and that was the main reason he didn't start last year. So if he's going to be a 3-down back in that system, he's in for a good season.
Yeah, this is Monte Ball's a green means go for sure. In this world of 2014 medicine that I don't understand at all, but I'm pretty sure appendectomies don't keep you out that long, and the season doesn't start for another 5 weeks. So this is a no impact injury for me at all, and he can go ahead and take him where you were going to take him, which is probably in the first round.
Yeah, definitely before Arian Foster.
Yeah.
And again, going off of Roto World, apparently Titans left guard Andy Levitre underwent an appendectomy July 24th. He was activated on August 3rd. So that's like just over a week.
Yeah.
Apparently, they're not as bad as they used to be. Well, usually when you catch the appendicitis, before it explodes, you're fine.
Yeah, as long as you get it before something blows up inside of you.
Yeah, when that happens, it's a little bit messy. All right, well, let's move on to the AFC North, the final division in the AFC that we have to go over. And then we'll do the final 2 NFC divisions in the next 2 weeks, and might even have some special guests to help us out with that. So keep an eye for that. Let's start out, by the way, Cleveland Browns, Cincinnati Bengals, Pittsburgh Steelers, and Baltimore Ravens, for those of you unfamiliar with probably what I might call the lowest producing fantasy division of last year.
They're certainly in the running for it.
But yeah, let's start out with the Sleeper Spotlight.
Prime time fantasy football's Sleeper Spotlight.
And Steve's all excited because he can actually hear that, whereas he usually can't. I'll let you start off, because I know you're a Johnny Football guy.
Yeah, I'm good with Johnny Football. He's fun and exciting, at least. I wish that people would stop talking about him. Coach Pettin, I went to North Penn, and I have your best interest at hand. Please just stop talking about who's going to start. It's probably going to be Johnny Football. You could just stop answering questions about it. But either way, he's a sleeper. He's going in the about 120, 119 ADP and ESPN. But he officially has taken first team reps, so that's at least news. And he's certainly a guy to look out for, and a guy that's probably going to make an impact in the league, not unlike other rookie quarterbacks have been doing in the past.
Yeah, I believe yesterday, and we're, by the way, recording this Tuesday night at 10 o'clock, I believe Monday he took all the reps, and today he split with Brian Hoyer. I guess Brian Hoyer's technically listed as the first quarterback, but I think if not by the first game, then by a few games in, you're going to see Johnny Football starting for the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, they had Hoyer listed as the first team quarterback I saw on ESPN today, but I mean, they said they're not going to decide who their real starter is until after the third preseason game, so I actually would expect it to be Johnny Manziel by that time, and that's when you'll know for sure. So that's kind of the reason that you draft later rather than earlier, because then you can definitely green light on when you're drafting Johnny Manziel. But right now he's in the sleeper range.
Yeah, exactly. And the Red Rifle, I guess is his nickname, right? The Red Rifle, Andy Dalton. Also sleeper. He's going. Where's he going? He's going really late.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I didn't check the round, but when I listed him because it was the fact that he's the 19th quarterback being taken right now, and he's being taken after Teddy Bridgewater and Michael Vick. So that's kind of the reason that I have him as a sleeper.
Yeah, Michael Vick's not going to be starting, guys.
I don't think Teddy Bridgewater is either.
He has a better chance than Vick. Andy Dalton's going about the 13th or 14th round for the most part. Which, I would agree with that. The guy he's not a fantastic quarterback, but he has one of the best receivers in the league, and that's like 10 touchdowns right there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Eli Manning and ESPN is going before him, by the way.
Yeah, which we just talked about, where short passes and runs and
you all know how
turnovers.
I feel about him.
Yeah, no kidding. He ended up with 4,300 yards and 33 touchdowns and 20 picks. He scored 20 points a game. I mean, I think we were talking about this earlier on the golf course. We played 9 holes today. And I think you were saying that he scored like the 7th most points in fantasy last year. So.
Yeah, it was pretty close. I know it was top 10.
Yeah, which means, theoretically, all he has to do is repeat that year, and he's a top 10 guy. We might not have him that high in our quarterback rankings that we'll go over later, but he's certainly better than Michael Vick and Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, and a lot of his money and his new contract is coming if they make the playoffs, so he's going to be trying. He's not going to just sit back and enjoy his riches like Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah,
but I guess
absolutely.
His probably depends on that too.
Absolutely.
All right, so we got running back wise. We've mentioned this a few times. Terrence West going 137 ADP in ESPN, which is about the 13th, 14th, and even 15th round. The guy is getting a lot of love this preseason. And Ben Tate, people forget this. Ben Tate has his own injury history.
Yep.
So he's a guy that, Terrence West is a guy that I am taking way before the 14th round.
Yeah, you certainly take him before the 14th round, and it's kind of an Arian Foster, Andre Brown type situation where I would rather have Terrence West than Ben Tate, where obviously I'm not taking Terrence West where I would take Ben Tate, but I would rather have Terrence West than Ben Tate just because of the sheer value that I'm going to be able to get.
Where you're picking them, the difference there.
Absolutely.
You're getting much more value where you're picking Terrence West than where you're picking Ben Tate.
For sure.
And Brown's running back coach, Wilbur Montgomery, which may sound familiar because you and I are both Eagles fans, which probably explains a little bit why I don't like Eli Manning, other than him just playing crappy as far as fantasy points go, as you saw with a negative 21-yard sack and a fumble Sunday night.
Yeah.
But apparently Terrence West has some shades of Brian Westbrook.
Oh, that's a good thing.
A former Eagles running back talking about another former Eagles running back.
Yeah, that's a strong comparison.
Yeah, that's a good thing to hear. And even Mike Pettin, the head coach, was talking up Terrence West. So when the head coach talks him up, and there's already talk about him handling 10 carries a game, when you're talking about him handling 10 carries a game in the preseason, not even in the preseason, that number could easily go up.
Right, exactly. And they could also just decide, obviously, new head coach, new staff, they could just decide they want to go straight youth movement with, again, Johnny Manziel, and then Terrence West could completely be a part of that as well. So there's nothing really stopping them from going young and developing their young guys to try to get better in the future.
Yeah, exactly. And another guy, running back wise, who you had on this list, who I had on my auction article as well, going pretty cheap, Ray Rice. Currently going in the 7th round, somewhere in there?
Yahoo's the 11th round, actually.
Oh, wow. That's way later. ESPN has him about the 7th or 8th.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's going, and by no means do we
I have to take a shower after this one. But
by no means
he
do
is
we
a sleeper.
endorse his behavior off the field. But yeah, on the field he's a sleeper. After those 2 games, he's going to be starting.
And he might be a guy who has his ADP bump up just because of nobody was really sure what the suspension would be like. But now that the hammer of Goodell has given him 2 whole games,
Yeah, it actually hasn't gone up much. It looks like on ESPN it's actually gone down a couple spots.
well, that could be just people not liking him and not wanting to take him.
That's
for
true.
more reasons. But
Yeah, I am not morally obligated when it comes to fantasy football, so I have no problem taking him.
yeah, if you can do that. I mean, he's going like after guys like Chris Johnson,
Yeah, what's
Shane
up with that?
Vereen, Ben Tate, who we just talked about, and Steven Jackson.
Trent Richardson, even Ryan Matthews, CJ Spiller, all guys who, and don't get me wrong, Ray Rice had a bad year last year, even though I think he played like 15 games, so he still had a terrible season.
Yeah.
A couple years ago, and I'll pull up the article real quick because I know I mentioned in the article, a couple years ago he was top something, top 5 maybe?
Top something.
Top something.
Yeah, I mean, and as much as you hate to say it, he might have something to prove, you know.
Yeah.
He's getting a lot of negative press, so.
He was 6th in 2012.
Yeah, he had a great, I mean, he's got great potential, and he's a great running back.
He's only 27. He's not as old as some of these other running backs running, for lack of a better word, running around out there.
Yeah.
And, you know, I like him a lot more than I like Chris Johnson. That's for darn sure.
Yep, Chris Johnson continues to get drafted high, so.
Yeah. And let's move on to receiver Steve Smith Sr., going in about the 13th round on ESPN, a guy that seems to produce every year. He seems to get overlooked every year and seems to produce every year. He's probably not going to be a starter for you, but a good filling guy, especially I know you like Flacco to air it out and Steve Smith to get it.
Yep, I ended up with, we went over last week, Steve Smith. I ended up with him really late, and I think it was like the 15th round in a mock draft that I did, and I was pretty happy with it, so. I mean, Steve Smith is always, he's a gamer, man, and I like having those type of guys because they're always going to show up and produce. So I would certainly take Steve Smith where he's going as a value pick.
Yeah, next on the list is a guy who is officially now the starter opposite Antonio Brown, Marcus Wheaton, who I like a lot this year. He didn't have a huge rookie year last year, but filling in for Emmanuel Sanders, I don't see many other options besides Antonio Brown on that team. I mean, you have some Heath Miller who's aging, but I think Marcus Wheaton is going to have a nice, a quietly, surprisingly good year, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that's fair. They need somebody down there. I mean, Antonio Brown, eventually they're just going to start putting a safety over the top, and somebody else is going to have to produce. So it might as well be Marcus Wheaton if nobody else. So if they're putting him as the opposite Antonio Brown, he certainly has the best potential to be a sleeper.
Yeah, by the way, Emmanuel Sanders and Jericho Cotchery, who have both left the team combined for 113 receptions and 16 touchdowns last year. So some of that's got to go to Marcus Wheaton.
Yeah.
I know he was drawing some burner comparisons with Mike Wallace coming out of college. So
We certainly used him well when he was in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely a guy worth taking in those later rounds. There's a lot of guys that I think you can get some great value for this year in those later rounds.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see. I don't know if this is just because we've been doing the sleeper spotlight and I get excited about guys like this, but that certainly seems the same way to me. And I'll go with the next one because I know you're not high on this next guy at all.
Nope.
So Miles Austin is going 124 ADP. And I just have him on the list because he's listed as a starter. So I really put stock in if I can find a starting wide receiver that late in a draft, then I'm going to go with it. I can understand because Adam's going to give me the case why he's not a sleeper. So, but I'm saying that since he's listed as a number one, somebody's got to produce. It's just the way that the world works.
No.
Thanks, Robot Bill.
I'm going to agree with Robot Bill here. I'm not a Miles Austin guy. I mean, I took him last year, like in a middle round, thinking, oh, that's a pretty good value. I might actually get some play out of him, and I didn't. He has bad hamstrings, just in general. Like I don't know if he was even born with hamstrings. This guy. I know he's listed as a starter, but I just don't know who else they have in Cleveland to play. It's not it's not going to be pretty over there in Cleveland as far as passing goes. And that's why I think they start Johnny Manziel, is because they're going to have to use his legs a lot. I think Jordan Cameron is going to get a lot of the work, and I think he is supposed to miss. I guess we kind of overlooked him in the injury thing. I thought I had him on the list before, but I think he has a shoulder injury. By the way, green for me. I'm not really too worried about it.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not on the list.
Yeah, he can play.
Who is listed as their other wide receivers?
Well, they have,
Josh Gordon's still listed as a starter.
they
isn't
have
he?
Josh Gordon as their number one. They have Burleson and Andrew Hawkins, who they brought in from Cincinnati.
No.
Yeah, he won't be a starter either. Robot Bill got that one.
Yeah, I actually like Andrew Hawkins
Yeah.
best out of those wide receivers. And I'm kind of passing by Miles Austin. If I'm looking, let me just double check who's going around Miles Austin real quick, and maybe we can kind of figure out who. So Mike Evans, I'm looking at Tavon Austin. Tavon Austin's going before Miles Austin. So after Miles Austin would be Harry Douglas, Buffalo's Mike Williams, Dexter McCluster, Rod Streeter, Robert Woods, Eddie Royce. So, I mean, they're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel there. So I guess, at least on ESPN, actually, he's going undrafted, Miles Austin.
Oh,
I guess Yahoo's a little,
Yahoo.
yeah, Yahoo's a little higher on him.
And he's surrounded by guys like Hakeem Nicks and Odell Beckham and Jared. Like you said,
I don't like a single one of those guys.
yeah, it's kind of scraping the bottom.
I'm taking a different position. I'm drafting some other position at that point. All right, so that does it for the sleepers, right? We good on sleepers?
Yeah, we're good on sleepers.
All right,
No tight ends.
let's get into some over-under.
Sweet.
It's time for Over Under.
Kicking off with the QBs, a couple QBs with not great years last year. We're not going to talk, obviously, Johnny Football or Brian Hoyer, because Brian Hoyer tore his ACL and Johnny Football was in college.
And we already talked to Andy Dalton, who did have the good year, but he's going as the 19th
I guess we can
quarterback.
313 points last year for Dalton. I guess I'm going to stick with the over for Dalton, 19.6 per game. I actually kind of like him right around those numbers, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm going to go a little bit under. I'm not sure about. I mean, obviously, him and AJ Green have great chemistry.
No
so.
love for the red rifle.
They have great chemistry, but I just don't know that he can. He's obviously a great quarterback. I just don't know that he can duplicate 20 points a game. That's really impressive.
Yeah, I'm going strictly on the nickname alone. Ben Roethlisberger, slightly worse nickname. Sounds like a hamburger. 283.34 points last year, 17.7 per game, over 4,000 yards, 4,261, 28 touchdowns, 14 picks, 99 rushing yards, a touchdown, 5 reception yards somehow, and 6 lost fumbles. That's a lot of lost fumbles. I gotta take the over on him. I gotta think he's better than that.
I have a bit of a bias, not unlike your bias against the Giants. Attending Penn State as a Philadelphia fan, I have a bit of a bias against Pittsburgh.
Not a fan
of the state.
Not a fan of the burger.
So I'm going to go under on that one.
Talking about guys who have women problems. Moving on, we got Joe Flacco, 232.58 points, which is good enough for 14.5 per game, 112 passing yards, 19 touchdowns, 22 picks. Not a good ratio there. 131 yards rushing, touchdown, 2 two-pointers, and 2 lost fumbles. I don't give a rat's ass if he goes over or under. I'm not drafting him. So I guess I'll give it an over, barely.
I'm going to give it an over. I think his ratio is better than that. I even drafted him in a mock. It's much to your chagrin last week. So.
He does have Pitta back.
Yeah, he's got Pitta back. I think he's kind of a game manager, which is better than. He better be better than 19 touchdowns and 22 picks, so the Ravens won't be very good as a football team. So
yeah, I'm still not drafting.
He's a game manager.
He probably is over.
Yeah,
I just don't like him. A guy I do like, switching gears here, running back Giovanni Bernard, 166.9 points last year, good enough for 10.43 per game. In a PPR league, it's enough for he had another 56 receptions, so he's up to 222.9, 13.93 per game. 695 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns, like I said, 56 receptions, 514 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So 8 all-purpose touchdowns, over 1,000 all-purpose yards, 1 lost fumble. Ben Jarvis Green Ellis is listed ahead of rookie Jeremy Hill, which I told you guys don't overlook into this whole Jeremy Hill drafting thing. I don't think it's going to matter. And apparently Giovanni Bernard's had an outstanding camp so far. I love this guy. I'm going over. Way over. Over 200 points this year.
Yeah, Giovanni Bernard's on the rise. He's definitely an over for sure. He's a top running back, and top running backs are in the range of 15 points. So he's way over, just like you said. So in agreement there.
I'm taking him before I take. I'm sure this will come as no surprise due to our earlier conversation, over a guy like Arian Foster, DeMarco Murray. Right now, on ESPN at least, Giovanni Bernard's the 15th running back. Reggie Bush going before him, Alfred Morris, Le'Veon Bell, DeMarco Murray, Doug Martin, Arian Foster. Here's guys I would take before Giovanni Bernard. Adrian Peterson, LaShawn McCoy, Jamal Charles, Matt Forte, Eddie Lacy, Monte Ball, and that might be it. I might even take him before Lynch.
That's bold, but only because I like Marshawn Lynch so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's definitely not going high enough. And I mean, we were talking about Arian Foster earlier going in the second round. Giovanni Bernard's not going to the third round, and there's 4 running backs that are going in between Arian Foster and Giovanni Bernard. So I would, like you said, I'm going Giovanni Bernard. He's on the rise.
Yeah. Another Bernard, this time in the first name, Bernard Pierce. 66 points, 86 PPR, 4.13 per game in a standard league, 5.38 per game in a PPR league. 436 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, 20 receptions, 104 yards. This one's a little tougher. I mean, he's going to start the first 2 games of the season at least, so that helps.
He has a chance to prove himself.
Yeah, so I guess I got to take the over. 66 points is not a lot. They both the Baltimore run offense in general was bad last year.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they're going to look to improve on that this year.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think the 2 games he has to prove himself might actually really benefit him. I'm going to go over on the total and on the average of 4 per game, just because I think that he really has a chance to prove himself, and he can get himself some carries even when Ray Rice does come back.
Yeah, that is all 16 games, by the way, last year.
Yeah, it's not good.
Ray Rice, speaking of Ray Rice, 15 games last year, 118.1 points. Only 7.87 per game. PPR, he had another 58 catches, which is pretty good. 176 points in a PPR league, 11.74 per game, so that brought it up a little bit. 660 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns, 58 catches, 321 yards, and 2 lost fumbles. That was in 15 games, so he'll be playing at most 14 games this year, so he'll be playing 1 less game. So I'm kind of interested to see where we're going to go over or under on this.
I think he's better than 7.8 per game. Again, just speaking completely unbiasedly as far as numbers go. He's not a better person than that, but he is a better football player than that. So I'm going to go over on Ray Rice.
Yeah, I'm agree with that. I'm going to go over as well. Let's move on to wide receivers. Big wide receiver here, A.J. Green. There's a couple good wide receivers in this division. A.J. Green with 214 points. For 13.4 per game in a standard league. PPR, he added 98 receptions for 312.6 points, which is 19.5 per game in a PPR league, which is fantastic. 1,426 yards and 11 touchdowns. I'm going to go over on him. I think A.J. Green is this is his 4th year in the NFL, I think. I think he's just going to keep getting better. He's a monster.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. I thought that I would be maybe a little bit bold going over on 215 for a wide receiver, but you already went over. So I'm also going over. I think he's a 15-point per game wide receiver, just getting better with Andy Dalton. And as the years go by, he shows no signs of slowing down. And like you said, he's a lot younger than people think he is, because he came right into the league as a rookie and really produced in the Julio Jones type mold. So he's for sure a stud wide receiver in this league, and I'm going to go over.
Yeah, it currently looks like he's the 3rd drafted wide receiver behind Demaryius Thomas. In Yahoo, he's actually 4th behind Dez Bryant. If I'm going wide receivers, and I don't want to give away my wide receiver rankings, but I'm probably putting him in the 3rd, but ahead of Demaryius Thomas, actually. I think I would put Dez Bryant maybe would be 2nd. If he, if he stops hitting his mom and stuff like that.
Yeah, really.
So moving on into, cheap shots. We're actually getting a lot of cheap shots in this episode.
Yeah, but if you want to come on the show to defend yourself, please do.
That's a good point. We leave the door open. We're not going to talk about you behind your back. We'll have you on the show. Antonio Brown, 209 points, 13.1 per game PPR, added 110 receptions, which is nutsos.
Yeah.
320 points, which is 20.1 per game, so you actually averaged more than A.J. Green did last year in a PPR league, and almost as much in a standard league. 1,499 yards and 8 touchdowns, 4 rushing yards, 15 passing yards. That's probably where Ben Roethlisberger got some of those passing yards. 1 return touchdown, if your league counts that. The touchdowns I actually like to go up a little bit, the receptions and yards, and when I like to go down. So I guess I'm going to have to go under.
Yeah, I just don't see him duplicating this kind of a year.
Yeah, that was, like, kind of quietly, too. I don't think a lot of people realize the kind of year he had last year.
I only realized it because I drafted him. I was really unhappy when I got him. I was like, oh, I have a Pittsburgh wide receiver. But he ended up having a ridiculous year and doing it all. And actually really helped me to a championship last year. But like, I just don't see him duplicating 110 catches and 1,500 yards.
Yeah, it's tough to do. Yeah, and I think Heath Miller maybe being back has a little bit to do with that. And just getting the running backs maybe a little more involved. Like you said, it's tough to duplicate a year like that.
Yeah.
Moving on to Baltimore receivers. Torrey Smith, 140.8. Actually, just one Baltimore receiver, I lied. 140.8, which is good enough for 8.8 per game in a standard league. 205 in a PPR league with 65 catches, 12.9 per game. 1,128 yards, just 4 touchdowns, and 1 2-pointer. I want to go over because, Torrey Smith is a guy who should be able to produce well, and he has those flashes of good games. 140 points is not a whole lot, 8.8 per game. I think Steve Smith might help open things up for him a little bit, so I'm going to take the over.
I could go over as well. Not too much over. Torrey Smith doesn't really do it for me for whatever reason. But I think he is a 1,000-yard receiver, which last year he had 1,100 yards. I think that's true. I think he's better than 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to go over for the touchdown numbers. He's definitely the number 1 there. They like to take deep shots because Flacco has a big arm. So maybe he'll convert on some more deep shots this year and score a couple more touchdowns.
Yeah. And then up next, we got the receiver lining up opposite A.J. Green. Marvin Jones, 138 points last year, 8.7 per game. In a PPR, he added 51 catches for 189 points, which is 11.9 per game. 712 yards, 10 touchdowns, which is actually a lot for a value like that. Those two had 21 touchdowns last year.
Yeah, that's good. 22 of the...
Andy Dalton had 33 total.
Yeah, the 33, yeah. I mean, but I mentioned in a previous week that Marvin Jones did it all in 1 week, pretty much.
Yeah, I think he had 4 in 1 week.
Yeah. So I mean, he's another guy that doesn't really do it for me. I'm gonna go. He is the number 2, and they're definitely looking for somebody like that. So
I think they like Mohamed Sanu a little bit though, and Marvin Jones was missing a little time because of his ankle, and apparently Sanu had a good camp. I don't think that it's necessarily going to mean he'll start over Marvin Jones, but I think maybe he'll take away some receptions, maybe in 3 receiver sets or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I think I'm actually going to go under on Marvin Jones.
Yeah, I'm going to go under as well. He just doesn't, like I said, he doesn't do it for me. He had 1 game where he scored 4 touchdowns, and then he scored 3 touchdowns for the rest of the year, and he scored those 4 touchdowns in like week 8. So he just wasn't as productive, and obviously that was an aberration for him to score 4 touchdowns in a game. So
yeah,
I'm going to go under on Marvin Jones. He just doesn't really impress me that much.
Okay, I agree. Let's move on to the tight end position. Jordan Cameron, 15 games last year. Like we said, he has a little bit of a shoulder injury. There's where I put it. I knew I put it somewhere in this email. That's where I mentioned the injured shoulder. 133.7, which is 8.91 per game. Pretty good out of a first-year tight end. 80 catches, which is fantastic for a first-year tight end. 213.7 points, 14.25 per game if you're playing in a PPR league. Just under 1,000 yards. He was at 917 with 7 touchdowns.
I will take the over.
Okay.
Because why not? We just mentioned that Cleveland... I just mentioned I thought Miles Austin was a sleeper, and you told me why he's not. So they got to throw it to somebody because Miles Austin is considered their number 1 receiver. So why not Jordan Cameron? You guy's a freak. And
well, actually, their number 1 receiver is going to be suspended for the season.
Yeah, their number 1 receiver is Josh Gordon.
Listed. Although we won't know, by the way, we won't know for a few weeks possibly if Josh Gordon is going to get any appeal. I think it's leaning towards no at this point.
Another reason why you wait to draft.
Yeah, exactly. I guess I'm gonna go over for the same reason. I would like, if they had more options, I'd say under, but especially if Johnny Manziel comes in, those young quarterbacks like to look for those tight ends because they're just easy, big targets.
Safety blankets, yeah.
Yeah, so, I like Jordan Cameron to go over. Another guy, kind of started out, getting some hype last year, Tyler Eifert, 15 games, only 56 points for 3.7 per game PPR. He added 39 receptions for 95 points, which is 6.3 per game. 445 yards and 2 touchdowns. I like him to go over. I think he's going to have maybe not by much. I still don't see him as a top 10 tight end, but I like him to get a little bit more action going this year.
Yeah, I actually like Eifert a lot. He's got a lot of talent, at least, and he's definitely the number one there, locked in. He's a big target, maybe end zone bait, although they have A.J. Green, but maybe he gets double covered and they look for Eifert a little bit more. So he's better than 4 points per game to me, so I'm going to go over on him.
Yeah, and I guess he did also have a shoulder injury, but at this point he is fully healed, so he's good to go. And from some reports in June, so I don't know if this is still even true because you know how much stuff changes.
Yeah, really.
The Bengals plan to utilize some 2 tight end sets this year, which means more on-field time for Tyler Eifert. Heath Miller, Dennis Pitta, we're not going to talk about. Only played 4 games last year. Heath Miller, 14 games last year, 63 points, which is 4.5 per game. PPR, he added 58 catches, which is another pretty good number for a tight end, especially in 14 games. 8.6 per game in a PPR league, 593 yards and a touchdown and a lost fumble. I'll take the over. I know Big Ben likes to go to him, and he's going to get more than 1 touchdown for sure.
Yeah, we were just talking about the tight end safety blanket. This guy's the definition of a safety blanket for Ben Roethlisberger, pretty much. And you said it, 1 touchdown. They look for him in the red zone. So the fact that he only scored 1 touchdown is kind of a weird thing. So he's an over.
Exactly. So that wraps it up for the AFC North. We are done the AFC.
All right.
That is exciting. Let's move on to our quarterback rankings. We'll go through those real quick. I know we're kind of running a bit short on time. Like I said, we had a full show, and we still have a listener question to get to.
Yeah.
So let's just go over. We're going to post our QB rankings. I'm going to post mine on the Next Level Radio website, which is nextlevelradioonline.com. You just go to Staff and Adam's blog, and you'll see it posted there. You can also go to Staff and click Steve's blog, and that'll take you directly to his blog, which is off the Next Level Radio site. And you're going to post yours there?
Yeah, I'll post mine there. I might do like a fun little thing that put them into categories and tiers and all that kind of thing. I don't really know how I'm going to do it yet, but they'll be on there somehow.
All right, so let's just go over some of the highlights. Steve was kind enough to list some of the highlights there. Similarly, we both have Peyton Manning number 1, which I think a lot of people do, and how can you not after last season?
Yeah, absolutely.
Top 3 is basically the same. 1, 2, 3 is Manning, Rodgers, and Breeze for both of us.
Yep.
You, however, have Cam Newton number 4. I have Matthew Stafford number 4 and Andrew Luck number 5. I have Cam Newton actually just outside my top 5. The only difference being you have Stafford outside your top 5, so they're just kind of rearranged a little bit.
Yeah, we both have Luck at 5, so we just flipped 4 and 6. I don't know. I think I like the running ability of Cam Newton a little bit more. So he's kind of he doesn't always win, but he's kind of he's a good fantasy guy. So
yeah,
I like
and
the way that he runs.
I'm not passing on him this year or anything like that.
Oh, sure.
Because you know what? I mean, he's a guy who's been top 5 fantasy quarterback since he's been in the league.
Yeah, exactly.
So
he came on strong and hasn't gone anywhere since, really.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason maybe I'm a little lower on him this year than a guy like Andrew Luck or Matthew Stafford is just because he still doesn't have many weapons. But he's done it before with no weapons. So, I mean,
yeah.
You can't really knock him for that. So, I have him just outside my top 5, but I don't think he's going to be any issues this year.
Right.
We also both have Johnny Manziel, Johnny Football, inside our top 25. You have him at 22. I have him sneaking into the top 5 just below my favorite 2 quarterbacks, Flacco and Manning. He could obviously move up in the ranking as preseason goes. I just have him in there because I couldn't not have him in there, I think.
Yeah, I agree. He's a good guy to take a flyer on. I have him below Eli Manning as well. I have him above Joe Flacco, but below Eli Manning. And I might even change that if if the guy can impress during preseason and show something, then, I mean, he's worth somebody taking a flyer on him because it's proven now that rookie quarterbacks can do it. So
Yeah. Both of us have Tony Romo outside the top 12. I have him at 13. Steve has him at 16. I know there's a lot of hype going into, his offensive coordinator being the former offensive coordinator of Matthew Stafford, so they're going to pass it a lot, supposedly, and Matthew Stafford always puts up points, but I'm not really buying into that too much. Romo's still Romo. I think he's actually maybe going to have some injury problems. He had that back surgery last year, and he's going to be a guy who's going to put up some points, but he's just, I like a guy like Jay Cutler better than him, Matt Ryan to have a comeback year better than him, and a lot of the other guys, you're looking at Tom Brady, Cam Newton, Andrew Luck, pure passers who are, more reliable, I guess would be the word. And then also ahead of him, you have a couple guys like RG3 and Kaepernick. At least I do. I think you do as well. Yeah,
I do. Yeah.
Just because they have that extra running ability.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you said it. I have actually have Romo pretty low at 16, just because that back injury thing scares me. A lot of people say that he's back and all that stuff, but I just don't see. I would like to see him prove it a little bit before he's all the way back and into the top tier as a fantasy quarterback.
Yeah, and I have him on my, and I keep bringing this up, and if you want to check it out, you can go to my blog on the Next Level Radio site, but best auction draft values if you do auction drafts. I have him on that list, but that's only because he's going for $4.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good value, so,
so
wouldn't hurt that.
Yeah, and Jay Cutler, by the way, is going for even less, so I actually would rather purchase, if that is legal, Jay Cutler. $116 million man, not a starter. Is that?
That's your red rocket.
That's my red rifle. Red rifle, not rocket.
Yeah.
As much as we just talked him up not that long ago, we both have him outside the top. I have him at number 17. Steve has him at number 15.
Yeah.
He could prove us wrong easily. Obviously, he did last year. Nobody thought he would do what he did. Still, like we said, he's a sleeper because if you take him as your QB2, he could potentially put up QB1 numbers. Obviously, that could always change. I think he overachieved a little bit last year, and I think I took the over on him, didn't I? I'm gonna retract that if I did. I'm gonna go under. Now that I'm looking at this list, but this list basically, kind of what I want to take away from our QB ranks, and you can go and look, is that this list is the reason you can wait on a quarterback this year. Look at the top 15, at least for both of us, are probably pretty similar. Colin Kaepernick, Phillip Rivers, RG3, Russell Wilson, Tom Brady, Matt Ryan, Nick Foles, Jay Cutler, Matt Stafford, Andrew Luck, Cam Newton, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Peyton Manning. They're going to go early, but any of those guys I'd be perfectly happy having as a starter 16 games this year.
And I completely agree with you, which is exactly what we are saying. Is that you can wait almost ridiculously late on a quarterback.
A lot of my mocks, I was the last guy to take a quarterback.
Yeah, and I mean, we might be in competition in the league working together to see who can wait longer to take a quarterback.
Now that we're telling our draft strategy in the listener league. Yeah. We're probably everybody's going to be taking quarterbacks and like that. We'll get Peyton Manning in the 4th round.
Yeah, it'd be nice. We'll take kickers and then quarterbacks.
But yeah, like we said, I have Robert Griffin. Bob Griffin is Steve kindly put him in here in the top 10. Steve has him outside the top 10. I just have him in there purely because of potential.
Yeah, I still have him as a starter, back end starter at 12. But like I mentioned a little bit earlier in the show, show me year for Robert Griffin just so that he can come back from that ACL and be 100%. I have Russell Wilson just in front of Robert Griffin, just because he's a running quarterback again, but he also has no injury issues, and he also did it last year, and I just like him as a player better than I like Robert Griffin.
Yeah, and both of us, we're kind of flip-flopped on Colin Kaepernick and Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
You like Russell Wilson a bit more than I do, and I like Kaepernick a bit more. I mean, they're both guys who have shown in the past that they can do it, and it's just kind of a matter if they can do it this year. I just like Kaepernick's weapons a little more is the only reason.
Yeah, that's fair. I just like, for whatever reason, I just happen to like the way that Russell Wilson manages and the way that Russell Wilson plays, and He's kind of one of those one of those sneaky guys that scores a lot of fantasy points.
He is
every week.
smarter with the football.
Yeah, for sure.
I'll give him that. And then Jay Cutler, we both like him a lot. Steve likes him a little bit more, but I'm not complaining that you have him at number 7. I just have him a couple spots back at number 12.
Yeah, I'm way high on Jay Cutler, and him and Matt Ryan are kind of parallel to me in the sense that their receiving core is going to take them to new heights, and I just like Jay Cutler's receivers more than Matt Ryan's, so
yeah,
I have Jay Cutler at 7 and Matt Ryan at 9.
Yeah, he does have, and just in the backfield alone, he has more weapons.
Yeah.
Best backup?
Yeah, I had mentioned that just because I'm not sure. Like, if you want to, outside the top 12, I don't know who my best, like, I have Rivers at 13, Kaepernick at 14, and Dalton at 15, which, to me, those guys are all really
serviceable, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And you said that, we'd even be happy with those guys as starters.
Yeah, I have Romo, Rivers, and Wilson as my 13, 14, 15, same thing.
Exactly. So, it's really tough just to, and that kind of drives the point home that you can wait and really get a solid quarterback.
Yeah, and there's a couple sneaky guys back here that we have in our top 20 that I could see moving up. I know Josh McCown, a guy who's going to start in Tampa Bay with a guy like Vincent Jackson, maybe a little bit of even weapons in the backfield if Doug Martin can play pretty well, and a new big rookie in Mike Evans coming. So he's got some weapons too. That's a guy. And Lovie Smith likes Josh McCown.
Yeah, for sure. That's been proven.
So that's a guy to keep an eye on as well. But like I said, we'll post those if you want to check them out. Steve, what's your direct link to your blog? SteveRichards.net, right?
It's Steven Richards.
Steven Richards. With PH.
Not with a PH.
With a V.
They got me on the URL.
Steven, not Stefan.
Yeah, exactly.
StevenRichards.net, or you can go to nextlevelradioonline.com and then go to staff and then go to each of our blogs and you can check them out.
Yeah.
Eventually we should probably make a Primetime Fantasy Football page to list all this stuff on one page, but
yeah,
we'll get around to that.
Figure it out.
I think that's about it, other than our listener question.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll let Robot Bill get in on the action a little bit, even though it's not technically an email, but we'll let him do it anyway.
Tweets and emails.
Yeah, same thing.
Let's check the mail.
You've got mail.
Internet connection's a little slow here, and it's also on Twitter, so there's that. This question comes from @DubSnipes, which is Wes Koenig. Thank you, Wes, for tweeting in. If you want to tweet in your question, tweet it to @NXT Level Radio. You can hashtag PTFF. Wes did not. That's okay. We got it anyway. So Wes wants to know, who do you keep? It's a $200 PPR 12 team, which is really cool. I kind of like this whole thing.
Yeah, that's cool.
I like having the keeper league with some money.
Yeah,
kind of
sure.
neat idea. He has Jamal Charles at $26. Fantastic value, obviously, especially in a 12-team PPR.
Absolutely.
Then from there, it's the choice of just Deshaun Jackson at $25, Pierre Garçon at $17, or Giovanni Bernard at $18.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, I don't want to say the clear choice because you get to answer the question too, but I think Gio Bernard at $18 is the clear choice. I think Deshaun at 25 is the clear not choice.
Yeah.
So I would either go Garçon or Bernard. Garçon worth 17, Bernard worth 18. Depending on, but I mean, man, having a running back core of Jamal Charles and Gio Bernard is a really damn good start. Depending, I guess, on, always in a keeper league, you have to look at what other players are being kept. If a lot of people are keeping wide receivers, then you might go Pierre Garçon just because that's your wide receiver. But to me, Gio Bernard at $18, that's good value for it.
Yeah, Gio Bernard in PPR, he had 56 catches last year, and that wasn't even with him as the full-time starter.
Yeah, we just talked about him as a good thing we did our AFC North Division spotlight.
Good week for this question. I like Bernard a lot at $18. For $1 more than Garçon, you're going to get a starting running back. Excuse me, who's going to bring in a lot of receptions as well. I mean, it's not like, if it was a guy like Alfred Morris maybe at $18 in a PPR, I'd think about Garçon instead.
Agree.
But yeah, I agree. Deshaun is definitely a no-no at 25. I would take Garçon at 17 over Deshaun at 25. Mm-hmm. But like you said, having those two guys in a PPR league, those are going to be two probably top 5 running backs in a PPR league.
Yeah, if not better. I mean, I don't. We're both high on Gio Bernard, but I mean, Gio Bernard's ceiling is essentially limitless for me at this point. And then Jamal Charles is a top PPR back, obviously. He has been for the last couple of years. He's established.
Yeah, so for both of us, we're going to say Charles and Bernard. Because honestly, in a PPR, I think you can get away with one really good wide receiver and then a couple like more 2s and 3s because it is a PPR. And especially with the new rules this year in the NFL where they're really going to be cracking down on defensive backs. They've been saying this the past couple of weeks. Defensive backs are not going to be able to get their hands all over receivers like they used to. Receivers are going to have a good year this year. At least they should. Or they're just going to get a lot of penalties called against the defense. But I think you can get away with like a guy like Michael Floyd. You know, I like Michael Floyd.
Yeah, I do.
You know, a guy like that, I think in a PPR league is going to be a good, you know, you could probably even get away with starting a guy like maybe even DeAndre Hopkins as your third wide receiver if you need to. I don't know if it's 2 or 3 wide receivers, but I mean, you get a guy like Michael Floyd and maybe take one of your early round picks. You know, and a guy like, if you can, if he's not kept, you know, Dez probably going to be kept. Like Alshon Jeffrey, Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb. I mean, I'm just obviously listing off a bunch of NFC North teams, but you know, I think you have a lot more choices at wide receiver than you do running back this year, especially in the PPR league. And getting Bernard at 18 is a big value. I mean, Charles at 26 is a big value when you have $200 to spend.
I agree. Yeah, that's actually a really good get.
Yeah,
for a number one.
So I think we're pretty.
Player.
Yeah, we're pretty unanimous on that. It's going to be Jamal Charles and Gio Bernard is our suggestion.
Yep, Gio's on the rise.
Like we said, if you have any questions, tweet them at NXT Level Radio, hashtag PTFF, or email us primetime@nextlevelradioonline.com. I think that about does it for this week's episode. We'll be live again next Wednesday. Which is the 13th, August 13th. If you can, try and listen live on Wednesday. You can leave some messages in the message board and get involved that way. If you want to know how you can listen live, just go to nextlevelradioonline.com, and it's embedded right there on the homepage. Just go there Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and you can listen right there. Steve, what do you got going on this week as far as your blog and everything like that goes?
You can check out the quarterback rankings. They'll go up on the blog, and the podcast will also go up on the blog. I have another unique article in the works. I'm not sure if that's going to go up this week or next week. Now that I'm going to be posting the quarterback ranks this week, but you know, always check out the blog, StephenRichards.net, and you can always find the latest articles and things like that.
Yeah, and next week we will be talking NFC South more than likely. We might even have a special guest for that. And then in a couple weeks, we'll talk NFC East, and we're almost definitely going to have a special guest for that. We won't tell you who yet until anything's official, but just keep an eye out because there's actually some guys you've heard of. It's not like we're just pulling random people off the streets. These are actual people dealing with the teams that are going to tell you how they're doing at training camp and how they're actually looking in preseason and what the coaches are saying about them, and trust me, that matters.
Yeah, no kidding.
As you can see, because I know Devonta Freeman is listed right now as the 4th running back on Atlanta, and we were both kind of like, keep an eye on him because Steven Jackson's not that great, but now listing as the 4th running back. Now, obviously, he could climb the depth chart, you know, as the preseason goes, but if we can get a chance to talk to somebody in Atlanta, we can find out, you know, is that just like a precautionary thing? So, you know, keep an eye out for that. Listen to the showcast every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. Make sure you go to nextlevelradioonline.com and check out special guest spotlights, all our previous shows, all the showcast previous shows, like the Facebook page, facebook.com/nextlevelradioonline, and follow us on Twitter at NXT Level Radio. But I think that about wraps it up for this week's Primetime Fantasy Football. Thanks for checking us out. We hope you come back for more. And again, if you want to join our league, first 12 people automatically get in. Everybody after that, you get drawn out of a hat or a bowl or something that I can put names in. Primetime@nextlevelradioonline.com. Just send your name and email, and we'll send you the invite. That wraps it up. Like I said, I'm Adam Gorey. He's Steve Richards. We'll see you next week.
See you guys.
You know, ever since I turned pro in 1989, when I signed
The Showcast.
Let's talk about these promposals. This is a Chick-fil-A one. This is, you know, the cardboard box of chicken nuggets. Under the lid, I'd be one lucky tater tot if you'd go to prom with me. Okay,
they don't even serve tater tots.
Yeah, I know. Doesn't make any sense. It's definitely a Chick-fil-A box.
Makes no sense. This
I don't want to go to the prom with you just because you're stupid.
Sundays on Next Level Radio.